What's up, people of the internet? My name is Davigab, and today we're talking about Crystal Maiden. That card that when you saw it, if you were anything like me, you probably thought, holy cow, what is wrong with Valve? This card is so bad. It's a 2/5. Crystal Maiden is a 2/5 with no armor. That's barely better than a creep at 2/4. Virtually every other hero in the game one-shots her. Her premier spell is a 3-mana cheap spell. I thought blue was supposed to have huge explosive spells, and her spell costs three mana? There's no way she's balanced. And to people like you who thought that, I would say, chill out. Yes, Crystal Maiden seems really bad, but is she actually as bad as she looks? We're going to cover that in today's video, so stay tuned. Plus, I'm also doing a giveaway. I've got some beta keys right here that I'm giving away. So if you're interested in possibly winning beta keys, stay tuned, and you can find out how to enter later in the video. So when I went to PAX, I had two main objectives. First objective, play Artifact and get those beta keys, which I did, of course. That was awesome. The second objective, this is going to sound really weird, but the second objective was play with Crystal Maiden and see if she's broken. That's I realize as ridiculous as that sounds, but there's a good reason for it, all right? Artifact is designed by Richard Garfield. Richard Garfield, if you don't know, is the designer of Magic the Gathering and a legendary game designer. He is probably, I personally believe, but if you polled all the experts in the world, they'd probably say Richard Garfield is the world's best card game designer. So if Richard freaking Garfield designed Crystal Maiden, a dinky 2/5, and he thinks that she's balanced, then clearly she must be. So when I saw Crystal Maiden, I was like, oh my god, she's 2/5, she's super weak. There must be something that I don't understand about this hero. She must have some hidden power. And I wanted to play Crystal Maiden to find that hidden power, because if I could, that meant to me that the game would be as good as I'd hoped it'd be, right? That there aren't broken cards in the bad way and broken cards in the good way, that Richard Garfield brought his full expertise to the game and made every single card balanced. So that was my goal. I thought Crystal Maiden sucked. I wanted to play her to see if she sucked. And my conclusion, the big question, does she suck? No, not really. Is she weak? Yeah, she is. She's complicated. Crystal Maiden is complicated. She's got a very pronounced weakness and a very pronounced strength. And only by playing Crystal Maiden, only by using her in a couple of games, was I finally able to figure out what made Crystal Maiden good. So we're going to go over that, but you got to kind of bear with me because there's a lot of subtle nuances that are kind of being a little difficult to understand. So we're going to do it the best we can. So first we're going to talk about blue in general, okay? Blue heroes are weak, super weak. They're all just delicate snowflakes, much like Crystal Maiden herself. So one thing about playing blue heroes, you just have to accept the fact that your blue heroes are gonna die. They're gonna die a lot. They're not meant to go up against Axe, to go up against Bristleback and come out alive. That's just not what they're meant to do. They're gonna die early game, which is fine. You're going to give them some gold. You're going to redeploy later. And then if you can survive to the late game, they're going to have massively powerful spells, and you'll run away with the game. So all blue heroes are weak, but Crystal Maiden is the weakest of all those heroes. So while it is true that her stats are really bad, nonetheless, that's kind of Blue's problem. That's Blue's flaw in general. Blue is supposed to have weak heroes, and logically speaking, one of those heroes would be the weakest among those blue heroes. So that kind of leads to the next question. If she's so weak, if she's so vulnerable, what makes up for it? Okay, now I think all you Dota players out there, Dota 2 players, will understand this. In Dota 2, Crystal Maiden is a support hero. Her job is to help other people get kills, to protect the other heroes, but she herself is a weak, delicate snowflake who will die as soon as a hero gets on top of her. Crystal Maiden basically plays the exact same role in Artifact. She is a support hero. She's not strong. Crystal Maiden is not a strong hero, but by adding Crystal Maiden to your deck, you are enhancing the strength of the other heroes in your deck. the way she does that primarily is with her passive. The way her passive works is the first time, doesn't happen with all spells, only the first spell you cast in a lane, you get 2 mana back. So for example, if you cast a 2 mana, let's say you have 10 mana, okay, 10 mana, and you cast a 5 mana spell. Normally you'd have 10, you'd gone to 5, you'd have 5 mana left over. But because of the way Crystal Maiden's thing worked, you'd have 10 mana, you cast the 5 mana spell, she refunds you 2 mana, so you go back up to 7. So you have 7 mana to play with. Now, the important thing about this passive ability is that it applies to all 3 lanes. So that's potentially 6 more mana than you would otherwise have. 2 mana refunded in the first lane, 2 mana refunded in the middle lane, and 2 mana refunded in the third lane, assuming you can keep her alive throughout the entire round. Now, it's worth mentioning this only applies to spells, so you can't play like a creature and then get the mana refunded. No, it's only on spells. Luckily, we have a direct comparison to this. We have Celemene's Favor, which is an improvement that costs, I think, 5 mana and gives 2 mana to a lane permanently. And that spell was popular, it was commonly used, and it was powerful when I played with it and against it at the tournament. So it stands to reason that if 2 mana in one lane is strong, then 2 mana in all lanes is even better. Of course, there are some advantages to Celemene's Favor. Number 1, Celemene's Favor is permanent. Number 2, it increases your max mana. So, for example, if you have 10 mana, Celemene's Favor will increase it to 12. So that will allow you to cast, I don't know if there is a 12 mana spell, but if there is a 12 mana spell, then Celemene's Favor would allow you to cast that 12 mana spell. Whereas you can't do that with Crystal Maiden because that refunds it. You have to have the mana in the first place in order to refund it. So Crystal Maiden at 10 mana can't cast a 12 mana spell. So Celemene's Favor is stronger in a couple of ways because it raises the cap and it's permanent, but it's weaker in the sense that it doesn't apply to all 3 lanes. So it's kind of like give and take. So I would say her passive is about as strong as Celemene's Favor, which is a 5 mana spell, which is pretty impressive. Now, the other thing to consider is that Crystal Maiden is a blue hero, and blue is the spell-based color, right? That's the color that cares the most about spell. They have massive spells like Echo Slam, Eclipse, Thunder God's Wrath. So, like, basically the entire game, when you're playing a blue deck, you're trying to stall out in the early game so you can make it to the late game and then cast those big spells. So having that extra mana to cast your like 2 or 3 big spells in multiple lanes is incredibly, incredibly powerful. So the way Crystal Maiden works is you tuck her away in a lane, and then you've got like Zeus and Earthshaker in some other lane, and you cast like Blam, Tower Barrage, 2 damage to everyone. Blam, Thunder God's Wrath, 4 damage to all heroes, and you just blam, 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 cast all these spells to have these insanely explosive effects that you can afford to do because you have Crystal Maiden. Now, one interesting little trick that I discovered with Crystal Maiden is deploying her in the 3rd lane. I think 3rd lane is going to become known as kind of the support lane, and here's why. The game moves down, I guess the camera's reversed, it'll be, for you guys it'll be over here. It starts lane 1, and the heroes engage. Then it moves to lane 2, and the heroes engage. Then it moves to lane 3, and the heroes engage over here. So heroes in lane 1 die first. Heroes in lane 2 die second, and heroes in lane 3 die third. There are some spells and effects that can go across lane. For example, Steam Cannon. So if you're in lane 1, you can drop a Steam Cannon and then shoot something all the way over in lane 3 and kill them. But those effects are pretty rare. From what I saw, they're almost always in black. So what you can do with Crystal Maiden, and theoretically other supports as well, is put Crystal Maiden in the 3rd lane. That means that when the first lane is resolving, you have Crystal Maiden's effect active, and you get to benefit from the passive plus 2 mana, the 2 mana refund. Then, once again, you move to the 2nd lane, and Crystal Maiden's still there, so you get to benefit from again, and then it moves to the 3rd lane, and finally, here's which will probably die because she's so vulnerable. But as long as you keep her in the 3rd lane, you're very, very likely to benefit from her bonus in lanes 1 and 2, and then finally 3. But if you put Crystal Maiden in the 1st lane, it's probably going to be the case that she's going to get decapitated by axe or assassinated or coup de grace or whatever and get killed, and that means you don't get the benefit in the following 2nd and 3rd lanes because she's dead. So I think that's going to be a popular play for Crystal Maiden is to always keep her in the third lane where she's nice and safe and you benefit from her. You get her bonus before it even matters. Okay, now we're going to talk about the second big thing about Crystal Maiden. Okay, Crystal Maiden's spell is super, super cheap. It's Frostbite. Frostbite costs 3 mana. It does 2 damage to a target and it disarms them. Okay, now this is very, very unusual in blue spells because most blue spells are insanely expensive. Echo Slam, 7 mana. Eclipse, 6 mana. Thunder God's Wrath, 7 mana. Then way down here, you've got Frostbite at 3 mana. Like what's going on here? So what I discovered is that if you have a lot of blue heroes, then a lot of the early game is just like pass. I don't have mana. Pass. I don't have enough mana to cast Thunder God's Wrath. Pass. So you've got to have something to do early game in order to make it to the late game to cast your big spells. For most of the decks that I played, like blue-black and blue-red, the blue heroes rely on the other colors to fill in that early game. Like, sure, that in the blue-red deck, for example, it has Earthshaker and Zeus and Luna. Those are super, super weak heroes that don't have cheap spells at all. So they rely on Axe and Bristleback, which are really, really tough, strong early game heroes to sort of control the battlefield and survive into the late game, right? So if you're playing like a mono blue deck, you can't just have your deck filled with 7 mana spells because you're not going to make it to 7 mana. You're going to be dead by then. So having cheap blue spell options is phenomenal for blue because they really kind of struggle in the early game. And that being said, Frostbite is super, super strong. It's very, very strong. Fortunately, for all you Hearthstone players out there, we have a very, very close parallel with Frostbolt. Frostbite costs 3 mana. Frostbolt costs 2 mana. Frostbite does 2 damage. Frostbolt does 3 damage, and then they both freeze, their individual versions of freezing the target. Now, important to note that while it's true that the numbers are a little bit stronger in Hearthstone because it's cheaper cost and a stronger, higher damage than Frostbite, the freeze effect is way, way stronger than in Hearthstone. In Hearthstone, when you freeze a character, they just can't attack. But if you attack them, then they still deal damage to each other. So a frozen target still does damage, but only if it is attacked. What Frostbite does is it disarms, which makes it so they don't do any damage, even if they're attacked. That is, I can't tell you how useful that is. It keeps your own guys alive. It protects your tower from siege damage. It stops cleave from going through. It prevents effects from happening, like triggered activated effects that happen when someone attacks. Disarm is extremely, extremely powerful. All right. Given the option of like disarm versus, Frostbite versus Frostbolt in Hearthstone, I would say Frostbite is much more powerful. And Frostbolt is a very, very popular, commonly used card in Hearthstone because it's so powerful. So if Frostbolt is so popular, then it stands to reason that Frostbite will be equally popular. Of course, there's a lot of other intricacies because Artifact's a different game, but they're close enough that we can get a rough comparison. So if you've played Hearthstone, like think about Frostbolt. Frostbolt's a super strong spell. Frostbite is going to be an equally powerful spell. And the cool thing about Frostbite is that you can play it for 1 mana. Even though its cost is 3, even though it costs 3 mana, if you have Crystal Maiden out and you play Frostbite, you get refunded 2 mana, so it only costs you 1 mana. So it's very, very possible that you could, Frostbite someone and then, Thunder God's Wrath or Eclipse or whatever, because you've got that extra mana. So Crystal Maiden is a really unique hero. I really am looking forward to trying her out some more and playing with her. And I can say that after winning 2 games with her, she's strong. She's just not strong the way you think she is. She's a support hero, and I'm really hoping that they have other support heroes. I want heroes in Artifact who has a role that's like, I'm really bad, right? I'm like a 0-4, 0-6, 1-5 I'm just throwing out numbers. There's no, you guys can't hear the comment in my brain. Like a 1-5 hero is super weak, or a 0-6 hero is super weak, or a 2-4 hero is super weak. But I love the idea of having a hero that's incredibly weak, but they give some sort of other, like a passive benefit or an activated ability or a premier spell that's extremely useful for certain decks, right? It's Crystal Maiden isn't like Axe. You know, Axe is a beast of a hero. I feel like there pretty much is never a scenario where you wouldn't want an Axe on the battlefield, right? He's just so strong. He smacks heroes and he kills them, and he smacks towers and he kills them. You just, given the option, you want Axe on your side of the battlefield, right? He's just so strong. But Crystal Maiden, there are a lot of situations where she's almost more of a liability, because if she dies, she gives gold. So I love the idea of a hero that's so weak that it's practically a liability, but she gives a specialized bonus that certain decks can exploit, right? You don't want to put Crystal Maiden in any deck. Like a creature heavy deck wouldn't want her at all, right? Because her passive applies to spells. So if you're not casting a lot of spells, you're not benefiting from her at all. But if you're playing a spell heavy deck, if you're playing a deck that wants to shut down, slow down, and limit the damage that's coming in, you want to play Crystal Maiden. And I love that, like, give and take, where it's not like, I mean, Axe has almost no drawbacks. He's just so strong. But Crystal Maiden does have that drawback, but she has a way, way stronger passive. Unlike Axe, who has no passive. I guess you could say Axe's passive is just higher stats, sort of, kind of. But I'm really hoping that Valve continues down this path and has passive heroes that's like, when this hero is in play, all other heroes have +1 block. Or while this hero is in play, all creeps have 3 attack instead of 2 attack. Like those types of like high risk, high reward characters seem super, super intriguing, and I'm really hoping that they continue down that. So Crystal Maiden, she's good. She's good. She's strong. She's tough to use, but I definitely see the potential, and I understand why Richard Garfield put a character like Crystal Maiden in the game. So that goes to show you, don't judge a book by its cover, because Crystal Maiden on paper looks like hot, I guess I should say cold, like cold garbage. she's not really hot garbage. She looks like cold garbage on paper, but after playing her, man, I was impressed. She's pretty useful. I wouldn't want to put her in every blue deck, but I would want to put her in some blue decks. So that's my thoughts on Crystal Maiden. Also, I'm doing a giveaway. If you're interested in winning some artifact beta keys, all you have to do is like this video, comment on this video, and also subscribe. Once the beta comes out, I'm going to draw some winners randomly from my channel and send you guys the beta keys. Also, the more of my videos you comment on, the more of my videos you like, the more chances you'll have to win. So if you go to yesterday's video and you're like, hey, I also want a key on this video as well, please give me a key, then that'll double your chances. You'll have 2 videos that you've commented on instead of 1. So feel free to hit down in the comments and say whatever you think about this video. Let me know what you want to see next from me. If you want to see, like, you know, thoughts on gameplay or shoutcasting, or, you know, thoughts on heroes or cards, let me know. Thanks so much for watching. Dabacab out.